fatal heart impact, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and pass. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet out. Get ready for defeat now.
And in other news, what happened earlier today, this morning at the USJ on UA grounds. Multiple casualties have been reported, along with the strange appearance of some mysterious organization that we believe was set out to attack the #1 hero, and may somehow be connected to the League of Villains. Now, in other news, UA has been giving a statement on this. Now, exactly how did things get to this point? We will cut back to roughly earlier this morning, where Izuki, she actually does wake up early, and she does actually begin to at least make some phone calls, calling the Winter Soldier and Taskmaster, wanting to see if they are going to be available for a meeting. Now, Taskmaster and the Winter Soldier, they do not really trust each other. However, if they are going to be both spitting in the face of the same organization, that is something they will willingly do together. And they will have a, neutral meeting grounds. Izuki's warehouse. Now, with that being said, she actually does get up and walk out of her front door, as she does actually go to leave. Mitsuki sitting on the couch asking Izuki where she's going to be going. Her looking towards her and saying that she's just going to go out somewhere, most likely for a light jog or a run. Mitsuki telling Izuki that she knows that that's a lie. However, whatever she's doing, just please do not get killed. Her then also actually stating one more thing. Please try not to drag Katsuki into this. Whatever she's doing, it's strange and odd to her, sure. However, this is Izuki's entire life. She may not want to be a pro-hero or a hero in general, but she is trying to do the right thing. Is she correct? Izuki is stating that she's trying to prevent these people from taking more lives, stating that she herself is a killer, so she's not above anything. But she's going to try and make sure that people can live in peace, especially with all this shady things going on. Now, with that being said, we do have 30 minutes later, where everyone is talking. All three of them basically staying in the warehouse and trying to understand what is going on. The Winter Soldier explaining to Taskmaster as it is that he will not use his quirk, and he will give him his word. While Taskmaster, he's simply just stating that, and he knows that he won't let him get close enough to use his. That's surprising Izuki. This guy has a quirk. Close enough? That doesn't make any sense. Well, whatever, you two. Anyways, she says, bringing her hand up to her head, that they have only a few hours left. They've gotten everything in place and everything set up, correct? Now, the Taskmaster does actually say that they do, and that they themselves have somewhat been lightly trying to tread on each other's grounds, trying to make sure that they cannot at least stomp on each other's feet. Now, that being said, Izuki does go over the plan. They are going to sneak onto the UA campus grounds early, and head for the USJ. As soon as that does actually happen earlier in the morning, then they will wait for the students to arrive. As soon as that does happen, that is where the organization would have to strike. Or, most likely they could at least try locking the students out. The organization would most likely try and be within the building. So, they can at least be locked inside. However, her then stating that that would be their dilemma. They can use her grappling hooks and her holding up another gauntlet, along with the widow's gauntlets of the girl she killed, saying grappling hooks, specially designed and made. They can use one of them and get out of the USJ. However, getting off the building and away from the pro heroes might be difficult, especially if we do encounter All Might. Now, the Winter Soldier does actually go on stating that he does actually have an escape plan, and it does actually involve collapsing a few buildings and going through the sewers, however. Now, Taskmaster is on board with half of that plan, talking about how they could go through the sewers, yes. However, they could also try causing a different type of distraction. And going on to state that even if the organization truly does arrive there could be another way out. Stating that they might not have to bring down buildings and most likely possibly kill people. Now, these two do continue to argue. As Izuki, she does actually walk over to a car and put the bags both these two brought in into the back, along with her own. Now, you might as well have put in what would be around 200 pounds of explosive ordnance, firepower, and ammunition. She basically set 200 pounds inside that trunk, meaning shit's gonna go down. Yeah. Now, Izuki, she does actually walk over and get in the driver's seat, honking the horn, as the two actually do look back over towards her car, walking over as both of them do actually climb into the back seat. And the Taskmaster man, he does actually take off his face mask for 1 second, and pull down his hood. Now, Izuki does actually look in the back seat, him directly behind her. And she does actually look a bit more surprised to see him. His facial features seem to be a bit more odd. And she does actually go on ask him about that. Why his hair is blonde and not black, like the last time she believes that she did see him. Easy, he says. Him reaching down towards a pouch on his belt, as the Winter Soldier does actually pull a gun and hold it up immediately. Him bringing his hands up and convincing him to lower the weapon, before he does actually pull out two things. Going on to state that these are two nano mesh designs. Basically, place it on your face, and you have one hell of a disguise. Not only does it manipulate light and basically make you look like a different person, but you can also use it to change your hair color. Talking about how it does actually seem to be a bit more difficult, however. And that the same thing can be achieved with hair dye. However, using it this way, him sitting as he does actually pull the entire thing over his head and cover his hair, as it does actually mean a change, and morph. Izuki mistaking that for an actual quirk for a second, before he does continue on stating that the Japanese development branch of the organization is quite high in tech, and experiments. Now, with that being said, they do continue to leave, arriving on UA grounds and sneaking in. Now, they are able to disable security measures and sneak their bags onto the campus. before getting to the USJ. Meanwhile, around the same time this morning, everyone is going over a conversation and getting packed onto the bus. Now, with that being said, Bakugo, him and his friends are actually talking. Him being a bit more laid back in this timeline, and somewhat relaxed. Sure, he has had a lot of things come towards him in his life. However, unlike canon, he wasn't always prodded and seen as the best. Because he's not being compared to somebody who's quirkless. There were kids in his school who did have very good quirks. Some of them did try out for UA. Sadly, none of them got in, and Bakugo was one of the lucky students. Other than somebody who may have gotten in general studies. Now, with all that, they do pile onto the bus. Bakugo talking with Kirishima and Ochako, and having a bit of a good conversation. Aizawa going on to explain what they're going to be doing at the USJ, as eventually they do arrive. And we do actually have Izuki, who is laying on the top of a building with a scope and a rifle, laying down and asking over her comm system exactly what are they waiting for. No one has showed up yet. And that if they were to have shown up already, they would have been able to do something that they've done. They would have laid out a trap, just like they did. However, this is not the case. And it does seem to be very peculiar. This being whenever the comm system does begin to mess up. And we actually do have the Winter Soldier, who actually does get out from his cover and grab his gun, along with his weapon bag, as he does actually pull out another assault rifle, and make sure to load the underbarrel grenade launchers. Now, as soon as that does actually happen, he does put in his drum magazines, as to not have to reload. Now, the moment that does happen, students do begin to walk into the USJ, and Izuki, she's actually looking down her scope, as she does see the Pro Hero 13, Eraserhead, and no All Might. That being quite confusing. They overheard that All Might was supposed to be here. He's not. Shit. Fuck. Their plan accounted for All Might. If All Might's not here, then it's going to be a lot more disastrous. Her trying to get on her comms and at least try and signal somebody. Before she actually does do one thing. Pulling down her gauntlet, she does actually see her screen. And raise it up into the air, moving her arm. Now, as she is doing that, we do have Taskmaster, who is hiding behind another building, and looking out, seeing the glare of Izuki's mirror, you could say, or her screen, and understanding that that is a signal. No All Might. Shit. It just got a whole lot more complicated. Him getting ready, as he does actually pull a small tablet out from his pocket and slip it into his mouth. Now, as that does happen, we do have 13 giving the explanation about different heroes, and talking about how rescue heroes and combat heroes are different. As soon as she is actually being to state about her own quirk, the villains do arrive, and they do actually begin their assault. Now, Aizawa, he does actually go to rush in, informing 13 to keep the students safe. This surprising, well, our trio of assassins. As another surprise does occur, as Aizawa is fighting and going up against these villains, the sound of helicopter blades do begin to spark up in the distance. And this is whenever the organization that Izuki and everyone was planning for has arrived. and they do actually begin to blow open the roof of the USJ. The students, in complete shock, think for a minute that it might be a pro hero. However, as soon as the helicopters begin to descend, you can see that it is not. And one helicopter in particular does catch everyone's attention, as all of a sudden a back rotor to it is blown away, and it begins to spin out, smashing into another helicopter as the two do explode. And Izuki, she reloads her weapon. And the Winter Soldier does actually make an appearance, him stepping out forwards and beginning to unload on multiple villains. And this does actually catch all the UA students completely by surprise, as the Winter Soldier, as soon as he does actually empty both of these 100-round magazines, he just drops both of them, reaching into his bag and pulling out a grenade launcher. And with his other hand, he pulls out another semi-automatic weapon, beginning to fire as it is actually beginning to fire off the explosives. And they do begin to go off. Now, the UA students, they all begin to scatter and run for cover. Not only are villains attacking, but there are bullets flying in every direction. And no one can tell what is going on, including Shigaraki and, well, Shigaraki and Kirigiri. I forgot his name. Now, these two immediately retreat, no question about it. And they do leave behind multiple things, including the Nomu. Now, with all of this chaos going on, All Might will make an appearance. There is no doubt about it. However, if Shigaraki gets hit by one of these stray bullets, he might die, or possibly get gravely injured. And Kirigiri is doing his task, keeping Shigaraki safe. Now, as that happens, we do have Izuki, who is just taking more and more shots off on the opponents, the men who are firing off all these guns. Now, eventually Izuki, she does run out of ammunition, and she does actually get up off the building and jump, before using her grappling hook and making her way down. As soon as she does, she gets to the corner of the building where her ammo bag is, and she quickly just drops down to her knees, grabs the bag and throws it over her shoulder, and begins to pull a weapon. Now, as that does actually happen, we do have somebody who is nearby. We have, let's say Momo and Jiro, along with Denki. They all did actually see this mysterious woman, and they actually did watch as she did actually begin to open fire and unload on the mysterious organization that appeared, along with the villains. And we do actually currently have the Winter Soldier, who is currently just running in and punching through a whole lot of opponents, along with actually laying a beat down into many others. As soon as he did actually go to reach in his bag again, he pulled out a different weapon, firing off multiple shots in one direction, while using his right arm or his metallic arm to punch through multiple enemies, and try to take them down. Now, the students do begin to try and step in and be heroes. And the organization deploys robots to try and help even out their odds in the scenario. Izuki and the Taskmaster man do actually take notice to this, along with the Nomu. The Nomu actually running around and being completely mindless, as he was ordered to attack everything in sight. Now, he did begin a fight with one of these sentries, and the two do go back and forth. The Nomu does show superior strength. However, multiple sentries begin to team up on it, and begin to fight it, along with UA students, some being caught and taken out, or captured and killed by villains, or the organization. Now, I will not give a casualty list. However, let us focus on our characters. Taskmaster. who currently does actually run into the battlefield, after letting his cape drop to the ground. As he does run in, he does actually begin to punch and just try and slide his hands across multiple villains. As he does actually bring his hands up after touching one, and there you do actually see his fingers, which have turned into weapons. Him letting off powerful shots. As whenever he did fire off with his right hand, there was a shockwave that appeared, and he just began to mow through multiple villains. Now, he copied their quirk, and that was a big deal. Izuki being surprised by it, as Momo, Jiro, and Denki did actually run up to her and try and understand what's going on. As soon as Izuki did actually hear them, she turned around and sprayed with a gun, before quickly just bringing it up, instructing all of them to remain in cover, and that it's not safe. Them all being confused. Her then trying to give an explanation that they're trying to kidnap some people here, and that it's not safe. Now, Jiro did actually go to try and at least help. Her trying to plug into her support items and blast away, before a bullet almost hit her directly in the face, and she basically threw herself down onto the ground to dodge it. Izuki basically asking Momo what her quirk is, as she does actually continue to fire, before reaching down to her bag and grabbing a grenade, pulling the pin with her teeth before just simply tossing it into the distance. Now, Momo states that her quirk is a creation-based one, Izuki asking her for a metallic shield, and Momo does actually begin to create it, as it does actually come out of her arm, and Izuki does actually grab it before just simply throwing her weapon on it, and continuing to fire. Now, she does actually reach down into her bag, and toss the weapon to Momo, who just looks down at it, very, very scared and hesitant, saying that she doesn't know how to use one of these. Izuki simply just responding that now is the best time to learn. Now, let us cut over to somebody else. We do have Bakugo Katsuki and Kirishima, along with, let's say, the Sugar Rush guy. All three of them are trying to blast in and fight against multiple opponents. Kirishima actually taking some bullet fire, as he does actually begin to punch through some of these guys. And the Sugar Rush guy, he's trying to go against the villains who are unarmed, as he does actually begin to get overpowered. And eventually he does fall in combat. Now, along with that, we actually do have Kirishima and Bakugo, who are both back to back, and similar in height. Now, with that being said, Kirishima does actually ask Bakugo a question. Does he believe that he could give him a hand? He wants to try and attack. What are you talking about? Oh, come on, it's called a cannonball. I think it would be fun. Whatever. What do I gotta do? Him explaining that all he has to do is grab onto his wrist and his body, and toss him as hard as he can with an explosion. Now, this is whenever Bakugo, he does actually begin to do so. Kirishima standing directly in front of him, until a shot does actually ring out, and Bakugo's face gets covered in blood, as Bakugo falls backwards, and hits the ground. Now, Izuki does actually continue to focus on the battle, as multiple things are happening with multiple different people, until eventually, All Might does actually arrive. And Izuki, she actually is happy about that, as she does actually bring her hands up and begin to fire off more of her weapons, along with the organization quickly closing in and trying to back her into a corner. The Winter Soldier, he actually has come in. Him and Taskmaster fighting from behind the organization. And they actually are able to take down a few more people. Now, Taskmaster at this point, I believe everyone knows who he is. He is none other than Monoma. Now, at this point, he's been being shot at and hit by multiple different things. However, he recently copied the Nomu's quirks, meaning that he has advanced super strength, regeneration, and he is now a bullet sponge. Now, he just simply begins to plow through the organization, and he does actually get a running start before just running straight in, and being able to throw his hands up and uppercut a robot in half. The Winter Soldier, watching as the top of that robot goes flying over the USJ roof. And it does actually go somewhere into the distance. All Might, he quickly begins to try and intervene, trying to take out and save as many students as possible. Now, we do actually have a helicopter beginning to take off. And Izuki, she's still sitting there and firing off weapons with her shield, as she does actually notice something. Momo, who's currently at least firing a gun of her own making with rubber bullets, does actually, well, begin to hear a ticking sound. Izuki hearing it too. The robot 5 feet in front of her is about to explode. And Izuki, she does one simple thing. Using this giant metallic shield, she just throws it out forwards, and throws it on top of the robot. Turning her head, and before she can even say to duck, it goes off exploding. Her being sent flying up high into the air, and having shrapnel rip into her legs and arms. As Monoma, he does actually look up into the air, jumping up high and being able to catch her. The moment he does actually go smashing down into the ground as the building he lands on. He smashes through multiple stories of it. And Momo, who is actually standing there, she does actually have shrapnel beginning to rip into one side of her face, cutting straight into her face, and her being sent flying towards the ground. As more shrapnel begin to fly in her direction. Jiro being heavily injured in the process, along with Denki. Now, the organization is still mobilizing and retreating at the same time. Conflicting orders are happening, and it's unsure what exactly is going on. As we do have the Winter Soldier, who, he actually does run out of weapons, throwing his bag onto the ground, picking up one of the advanced weapons of the strike team, as he just begins to fire it more and more into the air. And he does actually see a helicopter, him going to run for it, as the pilot does see the man. The Winter Soldier is getting faster and faster in strength, or in speed, my bad. And he does actually go to jump for the helicopter as soon as it does begin to take off, him being able to grab it with his metal hand as he does actually grip down on it. And it just begins to swing more and more, trying to get him to let go. Now, All Might does see that. However, he does see this raging monster ripping apart giant robots, and he decides to go after that. Meanwhile, we do have Izuki and the Taskmaster man. He actually is trying to get back on his feet. He's feeling Izuki's quirk and her poison blood run into his system. His body is not only healing at the same time, but is being attacked by it. As he does ask Izuki if she is alright. Her just simply stating what the hell is his quirk. Him saying copy, and asking Izuki if she can move. Now, the two do actually run out and see what's going on outside. They can see the top of the battlefield. Multiple things have happened on the ground, and there's a cavalcade of bodies, along with the Winter Soldier up in the air with a helicopter, and trying to actually avoid getting shot, as he's able to grab a man by his rifle, and using his left hand he's able to pull the man directly out, as he goes flying towards the ground. And another man, Izuki can see. He's trying to do something, as she asks the Taskmaster or Monoma to throw her. Monoma asking if she's sure that would be her stating just do it. and he does actually grab her and go for a running start, running straight through the building or the path they were on before jumping high, and them getting very high up into the air as soon as they do begin to come down. Now, as soon as that does actually happen, she actually does leap off and on to the helicopter, Monoma actually hitting the same railing as the Winter Soldier. However, he does have a firmer grip on it, him actually being able to grab onto the very bottom of the helicopter instead of just the landing gear. As the Winter Soldier, he himself does actually feel the helicopter rock and shake, looking over at him as Izuki is up standing there, before she just simply just grabs the man and fights with him, smashing the rifle directly into his face before throwing him out and down towards the ground. Before she just simply reaches down and helps the Winter Soldier and Taskmaster into the helicopter. Now, as soon as she did also do that, she began to at least try and scan the battlefield down below, trying to look for survivors. Now, she does actually look over and see All Might after the Nomu fight, where All Might, he is currently at least holding on to a body. Izuki actually looking around in the back of the helicopter and seeing a scope. Then watching as the pilot goes flying out the other side, as using the scope she does actually look in and see Bakugo, a hole directly in his forehead, and his eyes look somewhat glazed over. And All Might, he actually does check for a pulse. Now, All Might, he's basically screaming and shouting for everyone to get away, and for someone to call an ambulance. Now, with that being said, the Winter Soldier, he begins to pilot the helicopter, and they actually do leave. Now, All Might, he actually does look up, and see another helicopter begin to leave. Now, Izuki and her team, they are heading away. Meanwhile, a larger squadron of helicopters are actually leaving in a different direction that they were in. Izuki actually buckling into the back seat, as she just begins to think, smashing her hand against the wall and just screaming, "Fuck, fuck, fuck," and wondering how she's going to explain this to Mitsuki. Bakugo is dead. There's no way he could have survived a bullet to the head. Damn it! Now, with that being said, that is how we currently got into this scenario. And the USJ, it was a bloodbath. And some of the UA survivors can attest to that. Currently, there are possible injuries, and 2 students are in the hospital. Now, ironically, or by some miracle, one of the students within the hospital was a student shot in the head. And trying to piece together how he survived was a miracle. However, in all actuality, it was Kirishima who saved Bakugo's life. Kirishima hardened every part of his body whenever he was shot. The round that went through the back of his head came out of the armored front, losing far too much momentum, but still having enough to pierce Bakugo and strike him in his skull, and actually at least enter not deep enough. Now, with that, there is also Momo Yaoyorozu, who did suffer a whole lot of shrapnel getting put into her body. Meanwhile, other students like Denki and Jiro were found dead. And there are at least very few survivors of this incident. And UA is going to be shut down for a minute to understand what happened today. Now then, with that being said, that was a whole mouthful. I do hope you guys enjoyed, and have an amazing night. I will catch you guys in the next part.